would stand and have pleasure of listening by Councilmember Joyce and prayer by Mayor Pro Tem Reed. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would like to pray with us this morning, would you please remain standing? Dear God of us all, we thank you for this day, a day that you have made, a day that we shall all rejoice and be glad in. Thankful that you have allowed us to come together once and again to make decisions on behalf of the city of Madison. Allow us, Lord, to listen to you and to allow you to lead and guide us to make the best decisions for the citizens and not ourselves. Amen?
Amen. Thank you. Before we get into our agenda this morning, it's been okayed by our city attorney and our city manager that we have Mr. Patel here this morning. You want to talk to our council, so feel free to come up and express yourself, whoever your spokesperson is going to be.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
My name's Matt Frick. I'm here with Ben Patel. And we just wanted to go over really just an issue that's been on our minds for years now with the city and how we interact with the city and kind of assess areas where we can improve, areas where we can become more efficient, and how maybe the city's staff engages with businesses in the community. We don't want to ask or seem like we're asking for any undue favors. What we expect is just that we and every business gets treated the same. We get the same rules applied to us, and everyone is treated in a manner that is efficient and effective, using the city's rules that are in place and applying them evenly across the board. Over the course of the past couple of years, with several different ventures that we have been dealing with the city, most of our businesses are all inside the city limits, and so we deal with city staff on a regular basis. We feel like we've also almost been penalized because we're trying to do things in a proper procedure, where if we see that others have not followed the procedure and they're kind of getting by, not being held to the same standard that people who do follow the procedure are held to. In 2023, we sought a building permit for a property on Lions Club Road. We were building a couple of metal buildings, 11,000 square feet. We were required to produce a professional engineering plan for water control. We were required to have a detention pond at great expense. And not only that, but because of this extra building on our property, it took us over the 60-40 kind of green space allotment that the city requires. And so we actually had to buy 3 extra acres of land from a neighboring property owner. It ended up being the city of Madison. We bought 3 acres from the city on the back side of your property on Fairground Road.
Mm-hmm.
In 2024, so this year, when we were building either at our site on Lions Club Road or at the hotel site where we're building on the bypass, we had persistent visits from code enforcement for a bunch of different things. One was some of our employees were parking on the road on Lions Club Road or off the road, but close to 20 feet off the road, still on our lot, but on dirt, right? So they're parking on the road. And we were visited several times for those infractions. No violation, but several warnings and persistent visits and saying, when are you guys going to get this done? When are you going to get it done? When applying for a business license for a totally new company that was going to be at another property.
I'd like to add on that one, because this is where it becomes very emotional for me, guys. For who doesn't know me, my name is Matt Patel. I was born in India, moved to Madison when I was 7 years old. I've been in this county and this city for my whole life. I've had many opportunities to leave Madison, but I did not do that because I love this town. And I will be not tolerated at all if somebody shows that they love this city more than I do. They can love it as much as I do, but not more than me. There's no way. So when we got a violation, or hey, you need to move these cars off the road, I'm like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? You know, I was like, you know what, Mr. Malcolm, I'll tell you what, I'll do you a solid, I'll move these cars. So I moved the cars, right? Then we applied, we bought a Lions building next door, where, it's a different business, truck and body, BI fabrication, it's not BI production work. And we were told, you're in violation, we're not gonna grant your business license. So I said, the hell if you're not. So I came to the city of Madison, met with Molly, brought my attorney, brought my engineer, and I said, why are you doing this? Well, you're in violation. What violation am I in? Oh, well, oh, you're not, because it's a different business. If I am in violation, it's for BI production work because we're parking in the front. That's not the case. This was a different business, different license, so we're not in violation. So the city of Madison staff retracted and granted our license. Now, with that said, across the street, Conyers Welding, they're in violation. City of Madison granted them a license to build another building. They're in violation. But they were granted this permit to build this building, and then they created another violation based on that first violation. They moved next door from Fowler Concrete and took that whole parking lot and started parking their trucks. So not just that they violated me, which I was not even in violation of license being transferred, but they advocated another business permit and they violated their own violation. Doesn't make any sense to me. I brought that to the city, I brought it to Monica, I brought it to Molly. They said, I'll get back to you. I even brought it to John. I had a phone conversation going to New York that they were gonna get back to me, and they did not get back to me at all. This is 2-3 months away. And I will not tolerate that. As a citizen and a taxpayer of Morgan County, Madison, Georgia, I will not tolerate that from whoever that person is in this county, because I have the right for that.
Following up on that, the day after the hurricane came through Madison, Hurricane Helene, came through, started out raining real hard on a Thursday, came through, finally got out of our area Friday morning. There was a statewide emergency order telling people, you know, stay off the roads. If you can work from home, work from home. Don't drive. Stay off the road so that our emergency response units can get to areas that are affected very quickly. A bunch of our workforce didn't show up. Our entire construction crew at the hotel site didn't show up. Why? Because of the emergency order, right? That afternoon, at 1 o'clock, we get an email with a picture of a notice of violation saying, hey, you've got mud on your site. We expect this to be cleaned up within 5 days. This is on a Friday afternoon, right? Saturday and Sunday's off. So he's telling us that Wednesday morning, 3 business days later, if this isn't rectified, if this isn't all cleaned up, all these little points cleaned up, we're gonna issue a citation.
Stop to work order.
A stop to work order. If you guys don't handle this, the day a hurricane came through Madison.
And respected members here, again, we were not in violation then either. It's my private property, and if I have dirt on my private property that does not infringe on the erosion or the storm system, it's not a violation. I brought that attention, I responded immediately to Monica and to John that this is not a violation. I had my attorney draft a letter, which I have shared with many members in here as well, that it's not a violation, and if you don't leave me alone, I will really go after you guys at this point now. And it wasn't, it's my private property, I have not deeded that to the city of Madison, it's not a public right of way, it is my private property. If I did not pave the road, please tell me this, how is this not common sense? We care about our property and our erosion plan. So we did a pave, right? And you understand construction, right? So we paved this road so we wouldn't have erosion and dirt. So now if we never paved it, which is not a rule of erosion plan, then there would have been dirt everywhere. So basically I got a picture of tracks on my private road that you're in violation of erosion control. How does that make any sense? But nor the city manager nor Monica supported me on that, and they did not advocate it to their code enforcement that back off, this is not right. And it's the leadership's job to mandate and to advise and inform and educate our code enforcement or whoever those people are underneath us to do our job correctly and to treat people fairly.
Another building permit we're actively pursuing is on Industrial Boulevard over there by the airport. We've got a building over there on the corner, and we're trying to expand the building, another 9,000 or 10,000 square feet building there. We've been told, we just applied for the permit within the last couple of weeks, and we've been told, hey, I can't deny this, but our engineer is going to deny this because you're gonna need a detention pond. Well, here we are at another point where if we had done something outside of procedure, we would have been able to slide by, and I'll show you that in a second. But because we're going according to procedure, we're applying for the permit, they're saying that we have to meet these very high, the city of Madison, I hope you guys know, has very high standards when it comes to building and business, erosion control, very high standards. I'm not saying get rid of the standards. That's not what we're saying. We expect Madison to be beautiful. We want you to keep it beautiful. But when you make it so that if you follow the rules, you're going to be treated more harshly than someone who breaks the rules, it makes it difficult for us to want to play by the rules. It's the old adage, it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. When you guys let that happen for long enough, people are gonna stop asking for permission and just start asking for forgiveness. What I'm mentioning here is on that industrial boulevard property. So we're trying to build just a 10,000 square foot, just add on to the building. They're saying, okay, because you're so many square feet, you're gonna have to have a big erosion control plan. You're gonna have to have engineered plans. You're going to have to build a detention pond that's going to take you out of the 60-40 compliance. You're gonna have to either find some more land or you're not gonna be permitted to do this at all. The problem with that is when I look across the street, that's not how it's working. When I look down the road at 2 other properties, that's not how it worked at all. Conyers, again, across the street from us, they're good people, but they didn't follow the rules. They took their entire 11 or 14 acre tract, covered it all with gravel with no permits. In the last 10 years, they've slowly continued to gravel the entire lot. There's no green space on there whatsoever. The only green space that you can count is perhaps trees that overhang their lot, and if you count the 10 feet on the border, perhaps that's some green space. But it still only amounts to about 10% of their property if you count that, not 40% like the city requires. Now they've got a building permit now. They're putting up another structure. Do they have erosion control in place? Yeah, they probably have some hay bales and stuff like that. Do they have a detention pond for that building? No. Is there a detention pond anywhere on that site? No. So the entire thing is covered in what the city deems impervious material, and yet there's no erosion control. There's no water flow restrictions. Everything is just free to go, and they can do whatever they want to. And it doesn't make sense to us that we can look across the street, and they've got employee parking on the street. They've got no landscaping whatsoever. There's no green space whatsoever. There's no detention ponds whatsoever. They're allowed to go forward, but we are not. Doesn't make sense. We look further down the road at a property across from the Humane Society, just got built, 5 acres, totally clear cut within the last 8 or 9 months. They built a building. Do they have any kind of detention pond? None whatsoever. Look further down the street, DMD Garage Doors. Do they have a detention pond? None whatsoever. Why are we expected to follow these very high standards when other small businesses in the city are not required to follow the same standards? And I've got pictures here if you guys need them. I'm sure you guys all know the sites that I'm talking about, but I can hand those out if you'd like to. These are just few public pictures, and it's very easy to see that's where this came from.
And members here, I apologize for not being in control of my emotions right now, but it's been tough over a period of time. I have came to everybody individually here. I am not asking for a favor. Hell, I don't ask for a favor from my mom and dad. I'm definitely gonna ask from City of Madison that I'm paying my dues to. I don't want a favor. I don't want a shortcut. I don't want that. That's not me. That's not why I stayed here. That's not who we are. That's not my culture, right? I don't want that. Don't give it to me. I'm never gonna ask you for that. But what I do ask for is a professionalism of a phone call returned to me from the city manager of City of Madison when he tells me he's gonna call me back, and not wait for 2 months. And when I leave a message, I'm not gonna take that. I'm one of the largest taxpayers in Morgan County, Madison, Georgia. What if I wasn't? How would I feel then? As powerful as I am, that I feel like I have made my business and my values and who I am, and I'm getting treated like this. I'm not gonna take this anymore, at all. I'm not. I deserve a phone call back, and you guys tell me if the city manager is not supposed to return my phone call. Please tell me in what world does that make sense? Or at least have an assistant that can return my phone call or answer my questions. And I'm here today because I was neglected. I don't know if the city manager, city attorney is in this office or not. Well, there you go, Jay. You You wanted a meeting with me and Monica. Why? I've already went through that. I'm not gonna take another meeting, waste my time. If you guys don't value my time, I'm not gonna take that. That's why I'm sitting here. Then you wanna have a meeting now? It doesn't make any sense. And guys, it took me how many emails to get here or go in front of public? I wanted a closed door meeting and asked John was on the email, to get me in front of you guys so I can share my frustration. It's your job to listen to that. Just like it's my job to be a good citizen, and I wanna do that. And I wanna be respectful, but I am completely torn apart. I don't complain in life. Guys, I have lived in Section 8, mobile home, on the streets. I've done all this stuff. I've had values of all this in my life. It's not handed to me. I built this whole thing that I have. It's the best lesson in my life that I have. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm not going to take it anymore, Mayor. I'm not going to take it anymore.
Good morning, all. My name is Phil Calhoun. I work for Ben on the operations side of the revenue generation side of our business, which is obviously the rentals. On the rental side of the business, which generates the sales tax that we get from our business. When Ben says that he doesn't want to leave here, it is to the detriment of our customers. When I talk to our customers and say, we're here, this is where our tax base is from, they're like, well, you also have an operation in DeKalb. Why don't you go there? Why don't you run out of our office over there, which is a 1% less sales tax because of the local? He doesn't want to move the business, but you guys are making it so difficult for him to continue to grow the business and do what he does well. I just ask him a question, why? Why is it that he runs into these obstacles and there's nearly weekly shenanigans that are going on that just seem wholly inappropriate? It just totally seems inappropriate. Like, again, with all of the other violations and all of the other examples around town that are issues, and reasonably so. Why is it Ben Patel is the one that's being attacked all the time? It just doesn't make good business sense. It doesn't make good neighborly sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, Monica, you want to give any feedback to this along with our attorney, Jay?
I have some,
Sure, go ahead.
corrections I can make.
Okay.
Let Jay speak, if that's okay. Yeah, I know, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. I didn't want to ask him to move. Thank you. Molly, good morning. Did you have something you need to add?
Good morning. I have just a couple of things. I hear Mr. Patel's frustration. It's clear. We don't want any of our corporate or our resident citizens to experience that kind of frustration. So I certainly hear that frustration this morning, and we'll be careful to respond without emotion this morning. So a couple of things. First, there could not have been a point where we declined to give a business license to Mr. Patel's new business when he said that we declined to give that license. I just want to be very clear about that. Those are not issued by the planning department, so therefore we could not have declined to issue that based on some set of circumstances that were occurring on the property or not occurring on the property. Second, I'd like to speak to one of the things that seems to be a reoccurring theme is soil erosion. I want to be clear that whether Mr. Patel moved to DeKalb, which we certainly hope he doesn't, or he were to stay here, those laws remain the same. That is the state law. We've adopted the minimum state law that is out there. Our ordinance parallels state law, and we do nothing but just enforce the state minimum. So I want to be clear that Philip, while he, if anything, issues too many warnings instead of actual violations. I don't believe any property has received an actual violation notice until the last one. So he does tend to be business friendly. He wants to work with people, but sometimes people don't want to hear the message when he shows up. So I want to be clear that we just had a recent instruction we passed with flying colors from the state. The state sent 4 people, maybe 5, to audit our stormwater control procedures as a local issuing authority. We're LIA. Philip is required to go to any site that is under construction every week. It's not harassment, it's the law. And I was headed there, thank you. Good one. So he's also required to visit every site under construction the day after it rains. That's not harassment. He goes to every construction site. Mr. Patel is in no way singled out. And the purpose of those visits is to make sure that the things that are supposed to be in place before the storm have not failed. That's the purpose of those visits. So we got reminded by the state that we had very specific requirements. They found that Philip was doing his job. They praised him for it because we are enforcing their law. It is our law because we adopted it, but it is the minimum standard adopted by the state, and it's applied throughout the state. And I believe, very much so, based on both their review and my review of Philip's performance over the last 2 years, that we are enforcing it evenly across the board.
To that end, the Hill Park site that we are constructing a restroom at also received a violation notice the day after the rain, and we had to go and reinstall silt fencing. So we received the same violation notice from Philip at that time, just to add some context to that.
Philip is inspecting city sites as well. He's issuing us warnings as well. So anything that is going on that is soil erosion is being properly monitored, in my opinion. Now, I'm happy to do a review of Philip's work if that feels like it's necessary, but I don't believe there's any singling out of Mr. Patel. Okay, and I have one last comment. So those are the 3 things I want to touch on. One is that I do believe we have even enforcement of the state law. 2, we can't decline business licenses because we don't issue them. And then 3, I think there is often some conflation or confusion by new businesses with extant businesses. Neither is more valuable than the other, but they operate under separate sections of the ordinance sometimes. When we have something that is built but non-conforming, it is referred to as a legal non-conforming use. And sometimes we have to let them cover an impervious surface with a different form of impervious surface, and that is not treating them differently than a new construction in that they have to build a stormwater pond, right? The stormwater pond is only triggered, or the stormwater facilities, because it's not always a pond. Our ordinance has gradations of stormwater treatments that are required, and they are applied to new construction or extension of existing businesses, but they don't have to bring the old business areas into compliance. So there is some disparity from the layman's view between unconforming or non-conforming legal and violations. And so I'll end with this and then let Molly add some things. The last is Mr. Patel, about 2 months ago, maybe 3, I'm not as familiar with the timeline as maybe Molly is, did come to a meeting, asked for myself, Philip, to be there. Molly was present. We did take the meeting. We did hear the concerns. His engineer was present. And we were made aware of his serious concerns about the expansion of gravel in our community. At that time, we did follow up with the manager. Molly and I did a Friday report, and the manager directed us to start investigating the scale of that. Now, I will be very clear that I might have been a little direct when I told Mr. Patel I would not be able to discuss ongoing code enforcement infractions, just like a police investigation. If it has legal ramifications, I can't discuss us looking at other properties for enforcement. So I did not. But I will tell you that we have been investigating that. We've done everything from field visits to pictures, and that has been provided as a report to the city attorney for him to brief you on the ramifications of us making sure that we start enforcing gravel expansion, because it is a problem, and Mr. Patel has correctly pointed it out, and I believe we are being responsive to that and waiting on a direction from the council and the attorney at this point. So those are my thoughts. Molly, you got something to add?
And I apologize, I was a couple of minutes late, so I'm not sure of the conversation surrounding the refusal to issue a business license. I will just let you know about a series of conversations via email and in person that we had with Mr. Patel and his team. There was a request to issue or certify a state license indicating that BI Production Works at that facility on Lions Club Road could operate as for vehicle sales. That's not a permitted use. However, it was made clear to us that in order for them to operate, sometimes our state and local laws don't always jive. And so we have done this in the past where we have certified that they can operate as a vehicle sales operation, but we issue a zoning certification along with that saying this is purely for them to continue use of their property as it currently is. There will be no actual sales of cars on site as you would expect from a car dealership. The conversation that was had via email, happy to provide those, was my question as to whether this was an expansion of an existing business or a new business. I was told it was an expansion of an existing business. And I informed them that there were current use violations on site that would need to be cleared up, and then we could issue that certification. That is when I had a meeting with Mr. Patel and his team. That was reiterated to them verbally. Then I was informed that no, it was not an expansion of an existing use, but a new business. And I said, well, then we don't need to be having this conversation. If it's a new business, I'm happy to issue this right now. And then we started to talk about use violations that were on site brought to our attention by this request. So I just want to be clear about if that was perhaps the business license conversation that was had.
It could be conflated.
Yeah.
So we're here to answer any questions that you have. Honestly, I believe that while the frustration is real, I don't believe we're giving answers differently than we give to anyone else. And happy to answer any questions going forward. And I think I just want to reiterate that once Mr. Patel indicated that he would be seeking legal counsel, all correspondence, all communication has not been going directly through our office. We've been copying Jay on everything or letting Jay or John communicate. So that does cause some lag time, but we're being extra careful to protect the city.
So I guess our attorney can speak to that too, have communication been, okay.
And if I may just make a couple points, Mayor, in response to Mr. Patel's, they covered a lot of it, but when he first reached out, it was about, unfair treatment as he put it, and really he pointed at neighboring property owners that had potential violations, Conyers Welding being one of them. That is a code enforcement issue. If they slowly expanded gravel over a period of time, that's a code enforcement issue. In every city that I work with, code enforcement, unfortunately, is reactionary based. You don't know about it until you know about it, until someone tells you. They're not driving around, they can't know every single violation on every single property. So that is a code enforcement issue that does not get around anyone from coming to ask for permission or get permits or do things in accordance with the city and state law. As far as the setting up of this meeting, initially when Mr. Patel and Mr. Frick reached out, it was about code enforcement and unfair treatment. That is under planning department. So the appropriate people to meet with, and I offered to meet with them as well, is me and Monica and Philip. That's what we offered. They didn't want that. They wanted the city manager there. And I asked why, and they said, road issues and curb cut issues. And then it quickly changed to, I want to meet with the mayor, Carrie, and Rick. Well, when that happens, that three of y'all creates a quorum. State law, Open Meetings Act, can't meet with a quorum present. So that's when we offered to bring it in front of the whole council, which they accepted, and that's why we're here. We weren't avoiding a meeting. We had tried to accommodate a meeting, but every time we asked questions, they changed who they wanted to meet with. And so that's why we are here. It wasn't ignoring them or anything like that. We tried to work with them. We tried to set up meetings. Those are only the really two things I wanted to add about this, but I'm happy to answer any questions from anybody as well.
I guess so it seems like to me that Mr. Patel has said there was no communication.
That's right.
You-
And also, Mayor, so I love it how it all just played out. So what I would love to ask, Conyers wasn't in violation, right? Gravel, building, parking, right? All those things that I was told that I was in violation, so I cannot expand my business, which was not an expansion, but I can expand it. But they were able to expand their building, a new building, being in violation. And then they leased the property next door, created another violation. violations, so the state has a different rule for that detention pond, or that new 5 acres property that we have, that they're not, because it's, whatever. We will provide all the information to you, I have no problem with that. We were literally told, because of an expansion, that we're not going to be able to issue a license, sir. But across the street, they built a new building in violation, and it's an expansion. I understand it's an existing business, it's expansion. But yes, sir, this could have all been resolved, Jay, if the city manager would have returned my phone call when I called him on my way to New York, and he said he would get back to me. Monica and Molly said they would get back to me. They did, yes, I understand you can't tell me about an investigation, but they should have got back to me, sir, and that did not happen. That's why I'm here. Today's my birthday, I don't wanna be here. I wanna enjoy that with my kids. I mean, this is, I love how it just played out, sir, but I will be more than happy to show you my emails and stuff like that too. It's not right. I'm not a complainer, I have no reason, I don't have to build anything here.
So could I ask Jay and Mr. Patel, could you guys have another meeting? I mean, to work this out?
In the presence of the city manager or one of the council members. But I will not have another meeting with the city staff without a authority in place.
So John, would you agree to meet with them if?
Or I can just not-
Can I,
Sure. do it.
can I just add one thing?
Sure,
too?
go ahead.
I do want to make clear, and this is a city attorney issue. Mr. Patel does have a pending application before city staff. If they were to deny that, or he was unhappy with the result in any way, it would be appealed to the city manager and then could be appealed to you all. So, you know, if John wants to meet, that's fine, but I would ask that the current application not be on the table to protect that appellate right for Mr. Patel.
And Mr. Mayor, that's the absolute reason that I did not attend the meeting, because there's pending action. They have appeal rights if the planning department denied their request. Well, the planning department hasn't denied their request yet. And secondly, in terms of preferential treatment, and Jay's already mentioned how many times, I think it's 6 or 8 times he tried to get back to the attorney. We didn't bring the attorneys in, they were brought in on the other side. The issue of preferential treatment, I mean, I've only been here 2 years, so Mr. Patel and others can go back 8 or 10 years and tell you what happened in history or whatever. But I know as a new city manager, I got a visit one day from Mr. Patel, and he wanted to ask a favor. He wanted to buy city land. I've never heard of city selling land, unless it was declared surplus. We acquired land for future development of our Department of Public Works. We had a use for it, but he was insistent, and he said, John, I'm asking you, we need this land for our business. As all of you know, I brought it forward. Preferential treatment? That sounds like preferential treatment to me. I haven't done that to anybody else in the city, except for Ben Patel. Zoning change. I want to build a hotel, but I don't want to build it where you say hotels should go. I want a zoning change. I supported that, as did Molly and the entire planning department. So we can pick and choose, but that preferential treatment kind of works both ways. And you know something? I'd do it again in both instances. If Mr. Patel needed something and he came to me, I'd weigh the value in terms of the pros and cons, and if if it's a jump ball, I would support the business community. So there's a pending application, and I was told by our city attorney that you shouldn't be present at this meeting. Any number of times, I don't know, Jay, 6 or 8 times you tried to get back to him to set up the meeting?
I don't
And so
remember how
now
many
they're
times.
here to kind of bully the staff in front of the council. And I'll tell you, I have confidence in Monica and Molly. Philip has a tough job. And I also know that when the complaint about Conyers was lodged, that Monica and Molly and Philip undertook, in our undertaking, a comprehensive review on what's going on Conyers. But you can't have as your defense, you let that person do it, so you need to let me do it. No, if we let someone else do it and it was inappropriate, we need to take action against that. If not, we're in anarchy. Are we a city of rules or not? And so we stand ready. When the city attorney tells me I can go ahead and meet, I'll meet. If not, our professional staff, when they talked about drainage, we were gonna have the city attorney there. But we can't be told who we're gonna send, nor would it be proper for me to say, Ben, I want your attorney and I want your business person there. That's your responsibility. The city will send who the city will send. And I think that meeting would have been very productive, but they never gave us a chance. And so, we stand ready to have Molly and Monica and Jay and the city engineer and anybody else that has area expertise that could help resolve the issue. We're ready to move forward. But we're not gonna be bullied, and I'm not going to, and nor is the council. I mean, why does the council, why are we before the council right now? It's to pressure staff. Let the process work. The city, the planning department hasn't denied anything yet. They can't even appeal it to me. Let the process work.
So I was actually, sorry for reading, I was involved in two of the meetings. One was regarding the initial conversation regarding.
Could you stand? I come to the mic.
Was regarding the initial
Need a mic.
was regarding two meetings that I did attend. One was the first meeting regarding the hotel and the desire to move forward with that. And during the call, or during the meeting, the inference was, well, yeah, we just really don't want new buildings, new tall buildings like that coming into Madison that doesn't stay with our culture. I'm like, where else do people supposed to stay? I mean, it's not like, if you look at Ben Patel's properties, if you come to our offices, you tell me any other property in the town that looks that well. It's an investment, he does it right, and he's doing it the right way. The second meeting I was in was whenever we brought up the discussion regarding the 3 acres. The 3 acres abuts our main business. The main business had an expansion, and the 3 acres went to meet the requirements for the green space for the retention pond. So
Not just that, Philip, I wanna fact check that. That was not a favor that I asked for.
No.
So just so you remember, Rick, before you guys hire this new city manager, this is already in the works with David Nunn. Mary, you remember that too. That 3 acres was discussed way before you even interviewed Mr. John Kiln for that job, right? There was no favor. This was already, I had emails. David already promised me that. Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, what I'm saying to have a
David
discussion.
promised you. David promised you.
To have this discussion to purchase the property of City of Madison. So that was already in discussion. We already discussed that if the city was not gonna use that they would sell it. They would have to go through the process of selling that. And that was discussed. So it wasn't a favor. It was already discussed for me to buy that property. Rick, if you remember, we had you at our property to visit, and they said we want to expand it. We would go into the back property that the city of Madison had. So this was way before the new city manager came into the picture.
and if this is the way you treat friends,
So can I just ask you to back up a second? You said when you got ready to build your hotel,
yeah.
and somebody told you couldn't build a 3-story
No,
or
it was,
4-story?
yeah, it was that it had to meet certain requirements for the height, et cetera, which is fine. But the inference wasn't just about building the hotel. No matter what size it was, we're really not ready for that kind of change. And I'm like, okay.
And we took it to corridor. We took it to corridor, we passed it with everybody, and then we took it in front of you guys to pass the requirement of code change and all that. That's not a favor.
No.
We went through the process. We let the system work. We wanted a lift station, right? I mean, I'll love to share this to you, right? Because I feel like, oh, I'm getting all these special treatment. So I want a lift station. From all the owners of the church, or part of the church, Brooks Pennington, Bud Sloan, all these guys were part of this meeting. We want a lift station. Well, we need to get the lift station. And listen, guys, I don't need to, I go away from this, and if there's nothing that you wanna change, nothing you wanna do, I'm fine with it. I've made my peace today, and I'm walking away from here, and I'm okay with that, going forward. But if I didn't have the audience in the city manager's office that day, of Brooks Pennington and the church and the Chick-fil-A owner and all that stuff, Pete Steele was there. Bring them in. I would've never got the lift station. It's always, we're not bullying anybody here. Why, I mean, who am I to bully the city of Madison, right? I'm a resident. No, I'm not gonna bully my city. Like, you've been here for 2 years, John. I've been here my whole life. I got family here. I got kids here. You know, I mean, I'm not here to bully anybody, guys. I can't believe you wanna say that I'm bullying the staff member. Like, that's it. That's all I gotta say, sir. It's not appropriate. I'm not bullying anybody here.
Well, you gonna say something, Betsy?
Well, a couple of things I was going to say. And a lot of times, what we're talking about here is a lot of it is perception, and I totally get it. I totally understand Mr. Patel's frustration. I totally get that. But the perception, and just to even talk about like the perception of being bullied, you know, it's not necessarily intent, it's kind of how the one person feels when it's happening. I totally get it. You're a passionate man. We've seen it right here as well. You know, there's a positive side to that, but there's also sometimes, you know, a drawback to that when you come in so forceful, and it feels like, you know, so we have to, you know, feel like sometimes we have to step back with that a little bit. I totally get it. But the other thing I want to say, when we even talking about the hotel, I get that. I remember us deliberating about that hotel and talking about it and realizing at first it came in and wanted all this height. You know, for me, I remember, I'd have to go back and look at the notes to make sure exactly what it was, but I do remember that the discussion was about how many floors we were going to get. And it is, I mean, whatever you want to say, I mean, it could be appropriate in other places. It's not necessarily here. I appreciate our planning staff and looking out for the city itself, and trying to keep things, when we say within the character of Madison. You know, we hardly have anything higher than 2 stories. So we've got to, I mean, I'm especially one that is putting the brakes on things. It's not like I don't want change, but I certainly want to preserve what we have. So I mean, I appreciate that, and I get all of that. And I think,
Speak to the height issue for just a moment?
Yeah.
While you're there, before I interrupt your train of thought.
by all means.
I just want to be clear, the gentleman, I apologize for not remembering your name, indicated that we intimated that we didn't want tall buildings. I didn't intimate it, I said it. And the reason I did that is because that is what we learned from our community as part of hours and hours and hours of the comprehensive plan. They talked a lot about scale in our community. So we did communicate that clearly, because even though sometimes the messenger is not well received, it is our responsibility to communicate to both our business community and applicants what the community has communicated to us through planning procedures. And so that we did say that is what the community had indicated. And I will also say that we also relayed what the height restriction was under the ordinance. So one is the guiding document that we communicated what it says, and we also communicated what the ordinance allowed and where you would have to go to step around or to get those limitations changed, because our job is to guide the applicant through the process. And sometimes that message isn't received positively, but that's our job. Just like we don't review engineering plans for stormwater, the engineer does. We don't have that expertise, but we often are in the role of interpreting or sharing the results of reviews or ordinances with laymen. And so sometimes that can get confusing, and sometimes it can be frustrating. And we do try to relay that without frustrating folks, but I will say that sometimes that message is not well received.
Just to be clear, I said no such thing about intimating about the height. What I said was the intimation was that you didn't want new kind of business like that in town. That was where the issue was. It wasn't about the height. You said about the height, and I said I understand those are the rules and those are the things you have to follow. I said, but the meeting message was, we really don't want it. And it was inference in the way in which the meeting went. When we got out of the meeting, I said to Ben, what gives? I mean, that was, I think, one of the first meetings that we had with you, John. And it was just, I didn't understand it. And I still fail to understand the relationship. And it's not, again, Ben's not asking for special favors. He wants to be treated the same way, but he wants to have an opportunity to grow the business and not take 3 years in planning permission, or however long it took.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, wait, excuse me. No, I just want to say, and maybe we're talking about semantics here. I mean, just now in this very meeting, there was we could replay the tape, I'm not sure, but it was intimated that the height, so that
No,
word
the
was
height,
used.
The height we understood.
So, well, I know, but just, it was maybe it was, there was a misspoke, maybe
Okay,
someone
maybe
misspoke.
misspoke.
But that's what, from when I was speaking, I mean, I was sort of addressing that here, I think Monica was too, just what was said just now, not necessarily
Okay.
in the meeting. So I think both people are right, but I think, all I said, I heard intimated that, you know, something about the height, so
The
I,
intimation was that the business it wasn't something that you were looking forward to having in the town.
that's
here.
not what I heard
Okay.
seen right here.
Let me hopefully clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
And second of all, with regards to bullying, I work with Ben 5 days a week. Rarely does he get this frustrated. So the bullying isn't at the staff, if there is such a thing. It's trying to make the city aware of his frustrations. He doesn't get this way. As he says, it's, you know, this is the last day of the year he wants to be in this kind of a state. But it just doesn't seem like it's appropriate that it has to come here to try and get the message heard. It should be able to be resolved with the city staff. And it shouldn't be a challenge to try and get things applied fairly and evenly. I mean, again, with the expansion of down at the airport, I mean, that's an expansion of a current business, yes. But you're gonna need to put a retention pond in, okay. Again, look at the expansion of Conyers. And again, and I'm not picking on Conyers, I'm just saying that's just the blatant example of it, where they don't have to follow the same rules. They're not being held to the same, from our awareness, being held to the same accountability. Or they're being inspected regularly. I mean, it's just an ongoing sense that there is a focus of unfairness. Yes, are they probably following the rules? Yeah, probably are. But they're not following the rules for everybody else. And it's limiting his ability to grow the businesses. Thank you.
If I could say something about the hotel, as I recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the city zoning and the comp plan had an area identified for large-scale, tall hotels, and it was, I think they call it the interstate zone, something like that, a little bit farther away from Ben's property. That's where it was identified to have those types of buildings as part of our overall comprehensive plan for how we want the city to grow. Where Ben's property was located did not allow that. This council, these 4 people you see in front of us, and one other, as I recall, unanimously voted to change that and to allow Ben's Hotel to go in the property he owned up the bypass. I mean, I never got the impression he was asking for a special favor, but he was asking for something that didn't necessarily apply to everybody else, and we did it. My second point, I think part of the problem seems to be, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but when you look at existing buildings, you know, to Monica's point, sometimes they're established under different rules, and I understand completely the passion that Ben showed us. I mean, clearly he feels aggrieved, there's no doubt about that. But I'm asking, when you look at an existing building that was established well before maybe Ben's property, those rules are different now, but I understand how you might look at it and go, well, right next door, they don't have to do that. What is the deal? Is there some merit to that comparison?
I think because we were a building before too, and we built other buildings, made expansions on our building. So I bought a building that was old John Deere and then Townsend. So when I built a new building, I had to go through corridor for the green space approval, design. I had to put a detention pond, then we added another building. So we made these expansions that we're talking about Conyers doing, we did all that. But we followed all new rules. Not that we were existing business and existing criteria. And as far as the hotel goes, sir, you know, I made a very clear point, right? Because, listen, business, right? That's what City of Madison is, running a business, right? That's what we're doing. So you can't build any more hotels on the 441 that we allocated for it to be high-rise building, right? Because now you have all fast food, you know, fast food moved out, you got Sherwin-Williams, you got all this mixture of stuff. So in order to build a hotel that we need in our town, guys, okay? Now we're building a hotel in Covington, we're building a hotel in Atlanta. Those are all the places that I really need to build as a business owner. That's the smart thing to do. My advisory tells me, don't build in Madison, Ben, you're never gonna make your return. Build it in Atlanta. But I built it in Madison because it's my home, right? That's why I built it, because I wanna be proud when my son goes by there to go to school, sees our hotel there. So in order to build in Marriott, you have to have a 4-story, right? Marriott will not, or any 3-star or 5-star hotel will not approve anything less than a 4-story. No more 3-story, those days are gone. were here, including everybody in here, ask yourself, where are you gonna stay at, right? We don't have hotels. I mean, we're always, the sheriff department is dying for a hotel to get built because they have trainees that want to stay there, right? I mean, so this is a need that we needed for our city of Madison, not because Ben Patel wanted a hotel. It's because we need that here.
Well, I don't disagree. I think your argument, Ben, prevailed. We weren't granting you a favor. Your argument prevailed,
But it
and
showed us a favor.
we agreed with you.
You know,
And we took a vote accordingly and
I don't
approved
think,
it.
I don't think, again, it's about perspective, but I don't, in this case, I don't see it as a favor at all. It wouldn't have mattered who sat here.
And I understand that, Ms. Betsy, but I swear to God, this is how I felt, okay? I wanted a pump station in the back, okay? And we went through the pump station that we needed for the hotel, and I knew that this was gonna be a big deal, okay? You were talking about somebody said let the system work. Well, the system didn't work, so I had to go around the system. And let me tell you how I did that, okay? This is how I did it. I wanted a pump station, and I knew that I wasn't gonna get to first base on this, right? I asked, oh, well, we don't do this, City of Madison don't do pump station. Well, guess what? We need a pump station because there's gonna be other things that are gonna be hooked up to that. So if I failed as an owner of the pump station where the hotel failed, and there's a fire truck, and there's another thing that tied to it, you have to take responsibility of it. Well, guess what I felt like I had to do? Again, this is my feeling, okay? This is completely my feeling. I'm not pointing fingers, but I felt like I needed to get some of the heavy hitters, right? Like, I had to get some of those audience in a room to get a pump station approved. You can go talk to Pete Still right now, and that was my plan, and that plan worked. So you're saying, I had to go around the system. I don't want to do that. All right? I respect all the families in this town of our history that have built Madison, Georgia, and every citizen of it. But I am a good part of that too now. You give me the days that are coming. We will be the largest business in Morgan County, and you're going to be proud of it. I know Hollywood is proud of Madison, Georgia. They can't believe that they're doing business in Madison, Georgia throughout the nation with a company in Madison, Georgia.
So, can I ask our attorney, I know you had said that you guys could meet, you and the staff could meet again.
Anytime they want.
Is that sufficient with you, Ben?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll let you guys set that up, you know, and we'll go from there.
May I,
Sure.
if
Yes.
I may add one more thing,
Sure.
and that is, and I understand the list of grievances. I totally get it, you know. It's frustrating, it's hard. There's a lot, right now, you know, there's a lot of energy tied up in what was and how you had to accomplish certain things like the pump station and that sort of stuff. But I would hope, I would love for you to have a better relationship with the city and feel more like you were being heard and not necessarily treated special, but not treated unfairly. I get all of that. But I would at some point, if you and if the city, if we move forward with you carrying that same negative energy, that same idea that you're gonna mess with me again, then that's only gonna propagate that energy, right? And propagate sort of those sentiments. I mean, I would love that when you sit down with Jay and this planning and who you meet with, that we could almost like draw a line in the sand and say, okay, from this point forward, we're dropping the story, dropping the narrative, and just let's create a new relationship that's more positive, you know, but it will take, you know, dropping for both sides. And I, you know, just come in a little bit more objectively. I mean, sorry, I'm not lecturing you.
You're right, and I need the whole year to be done, and I'll deal with it next year. I'm gonna have an amazing December, and this is not gonna be a problem for me. So
You're
right, I have to forget, and I have to forgive, and I have to move on, and let that go in order for this to work. I completely understand what you have. I have never had the issue with our mayor and council, ever. I have never, ever, I feel like I have a personal relationship, I can come to you guys can reason. I have no issue whatsoever with anybody here.
So thanks, Bessie, and thanks, Ben, and I think maybe, to me, communication is just what we need, you know. So let's see how the next meeting ends up, Jay. If you and Ben can set that up, and our staff can set that up, then we'll go from there. That okay? That okay with you, Ben?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
If I
Thank
could
you
just
so
add,
much.
Mayor, Ben, you and the operations you do here in Madison, you're important to Madison. I think all of us, including the planning department, we appreciate everything you've done for our city. and I believe the city has been a good partner with you, but that's the situation we're in. We are partners, really, for the betterment of Madison. You as a private entity and us as the public side of it. I look at this as kind of like a wedding that's, well, marriage has got occasional bumps. We're in maybe a bumpy part, but overall, we're joined and our interests are together. But I think you're valued for what you brought to us, and I'm convinced that we can kind of get over this and move forward. I hate to see that you feel singled out. I don't believe that to be the case. I think we can move forward together is my hope and expectation, really.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Ben, I completely hear you. I think that you want to be heard. So we are listening, we hear you, we appreciate everything that you're doing. I am really big on double standards. So I definitely don't want you to be treated, I am so thrown off, today is Monday. I don't want you to be treated any different than anyone else. So I hear you. We thank you for all of the business that you've done in Madison. And I also want to speak on the height issue. For a while, we could not have a building that was extremely high because we didn't have a fire truck that would even reach if something happened inside of the building. We've since gotten a better fire truck, a newer fire truck, so that our ladder can go up in case of a fire. But today we hear you, and we thank you. And if anybody knows about double standards, I know. I've lived in double standards. My district is completely different from the rest of the districts in our city. It is the poorest district in the city. So I fight to make sure that my district is treated just as well as the rest of the district in our city. So I definitely don't want you as a citizen, as a tax-paying citizen, to be treated any different. So thank you, and we hear you.
And just to add, I would like to give credit to our staff because they do try to treat, to me, all our districts the same. I really think they do. They try to treat all our districts the same, and I appreciate staff. Were you gonna say something, Rick?
I don't have anything more to add, but I'm glad that this got aired out, and Ben, like's been said, we hear you, and happy birthday. Hope you have a good day.
Happy birthday.
And thanks again for coming, and we look forward to the conversation between you and our attorney, okay, and our staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to the staff.
Yeah, thank
for
you,
hanging
staff.
in there and holding what the rules have
Thank
made.
you, staff, and I didn't say that you treated my district different, but if you've lived in my district, then you'll see the difference. I'm not saying staff did it, but it's been done in the city.
Okay, let's get back to, you had to read the minutes of our work session on October the 4th and our regular meeting on October the 14th. If we can get a nod to put this on our consent agenda for our December meeting. Got a nod? Madam Clerk, you can put that on the agenda. Thank you so much. City managers, John, are you ready?
Mr. Mayor, I know that we have our friends from the CVB that has patiently waited. I'd be more than glad to defer and allow them, if it's okay, Mayor,
That's
to come up
fine.
with their issue so
Sure.
they don't have to wait any further.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council, for having us here today and being able to consider our request. So I'm Jennifer Rosa Leon, the Executive Director of the Madison Morgan County Convention Visitors Bureau, and I'm joined today with Charles Marvel. He's the Managing Director for Mad Hospitality and also the Vice Chair for our board for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So yes, as you all reviewed in my letter, following our annual report that I gave during a recent meeting, Councilman Joyce very astutely noted that our Welcome Center numbers, are lower. That is something that is going lower, and if it might be something that we consider looking into the hours for, as we are dealing with a decrease in our budget. And as I mentioned in the letter, of course, that is just $11,800 less income from the city's hotel motel tax for this fiscal year for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as this is the 2024 is the first year that we're paying rent for the Welcome Center. So with that 6,000, it's around $18,000 decrease that we're managing and working through to be able to do a really great job in promoting our community, you know, inspiring visitors to come stay and participate in our local tourism economy. And I think, as I mentioned too, you know, the Welcome Center, it is something that's written into our contract. It's something we take a lot of pride in, being open 360 days a year, and having a really great experience for visitors when they come. But it is one of our lowest returns on investment that we get for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. When you look at just sheer numbers of the number of people that come to the Visitor Center, in our last fiscal year, it was 9,433 visitors. This calendar year, up to the most recent month, it was 7,164 visitors. And as we know, you know, that winter season, January, February in particular, are gonna be our slowest months. So just looking at where can we invest our money, I presented it to my board during our most recent meeting, and just considerations, hey, you know, Councilman Joyce did bring this up as something that maybe, you know, we could look into, because we have not considered when we're cutting numbers in our budget, potentially cutting hours within the Welcome Center. So with that, you know, we really like to invest on things that are giving us great returns. And we know that our public relations efforts, those are over 10 to 1 per dollar in our advertising value equivalency versus investment we make. For our website, last year we grew 25% in our website visits. That was 145,000 visits. So we really think that investments in those areas, especially in a year that we are dealing with less money, would just be a smart business decision. And so with that, my board did vote that we bring this recommendation to the city for your consideration in amending our hours for those weeks from January to about mid-March. On our slowest days, that Monday through Wednesday. For example, in Mondays in January, in the previous year, we were only seeing about 8 people per day on average. So, you know, when you look at that cost per visitor, that's significant when we can invest in one of our cheapest areas is social media marketing. That's around 17 to 25 cents per click through to our website. So we just think it would be a good business decision, and that was something that my board, after consideration, they did vote all in favor to, you know, push forward that recommendation. Was there anything that you wanted to add, Charles?
I think that the way I approached this whole situation was that, first and foremost, as a business owner and trying to make sense out of labor cost versus return on the cost of that labor. And when we are dealing with a for-profit business, there is a very clear answer to what we would do. Balancing that against what the CBB is charged with generating for the city, which is increased tourism and absolute additional business for the city, it has to be taken into consideration the two factors, the nonprofit slash profit. And so when we were debating this issue, Jennifer brought up the data, which was very powerful, to, at least to me, saying, you know, the traffic during the first quarter of the year is very low on the first part of the week. And certainly when we have an increased expense in our budget now with the reduction in the income from the hotel motel tax plus the rent that we are now paying, which is, I understand it, that just made the decision easy for me. And so Jennifer and the members of her staff have done a great job maximizing the messaging that we're getting out, the various avenues that she uses to get the word about Madison out. And those avenues, in this case, are much more efficient and much more cost-effective than the hourly rate that we're paying for our staff to be managing the Welcome Center on a Monday when we get eight visitors. So that's the only thing I really want to add, is that from a purely business perspective, it makes sense to me. I understand that there are other factors in this with regard to the nonprofit side of what we're trying to do.
So you're saying you want to curtail your hours for what days?
Right. So for looking for it's January 2nd through mid-March. I think we had March 13th in our letter, to the city council. We were proposing closing Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and maintaining our same hours for Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
So will anybody be in the building? I know we got the wheelhouse upstairs. And downstairs is the public restroom for our visitors to come. So will anybody be in the building at all at the Welcome Center, or?
No, we were planning not to have it staffed, no.
Oh, no, I don't.
So there'll be no public bathroom
Right.
then
That's
available
what- yeah.
during those days? I
Mhm.
mean,
Not from the
will
Welcome
Mad
Center.
Hospitality like to offer one of their bathrooms for our public?
No.
Sinclair does have a restroom available, however,
Right.
it's generally not flushed. But there is another public restroom nearby.
At Town Park.
But if
Well,
you
that's a
think
long
about,
ways.
yes, I was gonna
That's-
say that. Think of a seasoned, I'm not gonna say older lady that's in this area, and we're sending her all the way to the restrooms in Town Park. And to one other point that I would like to make is we were talking about reduction from hotel and motel taxes. I can't remember the name of the hotel. It's under construction. Is that why we're negative some hotel and motel taxes this time?
That's what I believe. So of course the Super 8 renovated into a sleep-in.
Yes.
So it closed for 4 whole months during it's kind of confusing the way that the taxes work. So they're aggregated, or they're collected the previous year. That number is summed up, and then that's what our budget is for the next fiscal year. So all of our budget from July 2024 to the end of our fiscal year is actually from the previous year. So we had that to take into account, and that hotel was nearly 60 rooms, which when you take into consideration, all of Morgan County only has around 600 rooms. But then also, if you all remember the My Home and Suites, which was previously Red Roof Inn, they also had to be closed for a time under their management company. And that's another one that's 50 plus rooms that, those are more rooms that are just taken out of the budget. So our numbers, across the board for PR, for website visits, for just showing that people are interested in traveling here, we're all up. So the only thing I can think is there's not the rooms available that they actually want to stay in.
So can I just piggyback on you for a moment? You serve on the board of the Cultural Center. How is y'all traffic doing January, February, March?
I think they're doing very well, whether it's, I'm not sure I can really relate it to hotel occupancy being up or down though. But on that subject though, is there not hope in the future with the aforementioned hotel opening up fairly soon, and perhaps the safari park generating more income in that way? In other words, the situation you find yourselves in now, would it not be in the next 6 months to a year improved dramatically?
So our budget is set for the full fiscal year. So the new hotel would probably not be in our budget until 2 years out. And so the safari park opened, I think it was in May. So they maybe have about 2 months within this year's fiscal year, but all of that, it would be in the next fiscal year, because we're always basically a year behind in how the funding works.
But if I may, the hotels that were renovated last year that are affecting your budget now are back online. So we can expect, so basically, your lower income for this year is basically sort of a one-off. Otherwise it's very healthy.
Yes, that's what we're
Well,
hoping.
we're seeing it,
The expectation is that this will be a one-off situation, that we would reduce the hours of operation of the CVB or the Welcome Center for this year, but then in the following year, the budget, hopefully with the increased tax revenue, will then allow us to ramp it back up.
Right. Right.
And then as certainly in the 2 years from now, when Mr. Patel's bigger hotel comes online, that should generate enough tax revenue for us to then absolutely push forward.
I want to, if I may clarify something, I try to pay close attention. My monkey mind might have gone somewhere for a moment. So you said the last fiscal year, we had 9,000, what was our number for, the 9,000 for last fiscal year?
9,433 visitors at the Welcome Center.
Okay, for the last, and this year, you say we're at?
7,164 through just October, so not this month.
Okay, so
So this
we're,
month,
it sounds like we're on track
Yeah.
for about the same number of, of folks, if not more. Because we're basically, what, how many months out for the fiscal year? 5 or 6?
5.
5 months.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, that's for calendar year. That can be confusing. So that's for calendar year. For the 7164, I didn't count it for, so like, because July, August, September, October, we're only 4 months in for this fiscal year, but that's a calendar year. So let's see,
Okay.
if you wanted just for the fiscal year. Oh, I have to do math.
Okay, that's, okay, it's fine. I will shift
Uh-huh.
gears then and shift to calendar year and not fiscal year. But we still have, you know, Thanksgiving and Christmas coming
Yeah.
in, which will account for, I'm imagining, I mean, that we will be close to the number for last fiscal year for this year. Just given, we've got our sip and strolls, or those, do we still have another
Town
one
was
of
full
those?
Saturday, I think.
And Santa and the
yeah.
holidays. Anyway, my point is, you know, I mean, personally, I understand exactly what you're talking about. I get it. I'm just hoping, maybe, you know, something else has to take a hit at this point. I mean, I think I just can't, personally,
Yeah.
it's hard for me, honestly, and I love what you're doing. You guys are great there. I've gone in several times, you know, just to check in and see if things are going. Sometimes use the bathroom. But it would just break my heart. I mean, I just couldn't imagine what people would think if they show up on a Tuesday and the Welcome Center is shut.
No
It's just like, what
restrooms.
is wrong with this town, you know? And I also, I mean, to be fair, and I appreciate you working to try to make it count, make every penny count, and I get that, and that's great. I'm wondering, though, also, I mean, I believe it's my understanding that the contract with the CVB is to be open
Exactly,
so
the
many
city
days a week.
council
So
sets it.
that's already in the contract, and despite the fact that there's a downturn in revenue, you know, the contract is still kind of there, and I'm just wondering, maybe we could do, something.
The problem with that is that we've already done that, in the sense that Jennifer has cut back already in our other efforts that we're spending money on. We have print media that goes out, we have certainly social media and other personnel issues that we have cut back on. And now we're faced with, if we maintain this for the January, February, March timeframe, we're gonna have to then cut back more on the other efforts, which we, and Jennifer has shown the data, bring a better return. I understand the desire for us to be open in case somebody shows up to use the restroom, or just get a pamphlet from the Welcome Center about some activity in the city. And it's not a permanent choice, it's just the first quarter. In order for us to then be able to utilize the resources that we still have better, more efficient. There's a 10-to-1 return on the PR avenue that Jennifer utilizes. Bring people to town who then write articles for Garden and Gun or Atlanta Homes or any other number of places.
Yeah, but if they come to town and then the Welcome Center is closed, that's
That's
not gonna hit
But
well.
we've been doing this year-round, not just
Right.
January, February, March timeframe. So we certainly wouldn't bring a PR person to town on a day that the Welcome Center's closed.
So could I ask John,
Just doesn't make
you want to chime in?
Just a few comments, and I come from an area that the economy is tourism, and I am so impressed with the job that you're doing. It's a small operation, but very efficient and effective. And I also want to compliment you that you've seen a financial challenge, you're trying to address it, whatever. On the other side, we talked about perceptions today at this meeting. The perception is that Welcome Center is an important asset to the city. And when the city council negotiated the original contract and then thereafter, even when they agreed to go from 40-something% to 50%, the issue of the value of that Welcome Center has been clear. I'd like to offer a little good news, because if you look at our take so far this year, we're up. So if we don't have any additional business and we take the average of the first 3 months, we're not going to be $11,000 in the hole, we'll be $4,000 in the hole. But my question is, because this is from the city perspective, not from the business perspective, I understand your point, but from a city perspective, what's disconcerting is we're going down a rabbit hole, and it's like, are we going to keep doing, is it going to keep being closed? And we value that asset. So I wanted to ask, I mean, according to your audit, you have over $100,000 in cash. You ended last year with a $9,000 surplus. If we can ask you to understand the city's perspective, is it possible to hold for a couple months and see if the trend continues? Because I'd hate to, because I'm told by the executive director of one of the biggest chambers in the country that consistency is very important. And you have a big billboard coming out of Athens. It's a Welcome Center, open daily. I mean, that's what people have known. They always could count on that. And then we have the issue of the public restrooms. I mean, people are going to show up at the Welcome Center. We're going to hear from Mr. Benford, or we're going to hear from Mr. Snyder, or we're going to hear from Pat Reams about people showing up saying the Welcome Center is closed. So is it possible to ask for some consideration to hold for a month or two and see what those numbers are? Because we may be solving a problem we don't have. And I said, the downside, from a business standpoint, you might say, well, what's the problem with that? The downside is you're starting a precedent, and people are like, is the Welcome Center open today? Oh, it's Monday, it's Tuesday, it's not open today. It's just like, you're breaking that. And hopefully you leave this conversation knowing that Welcome Center is an important asset to the city. And the city agreed to up your 40-something to 50%. The city's been supportive in the past. The city's given you free rent for any number of years until there were legal challenges to that. Is it possible to hold for a month or two and see how we're doing?
So I guess the follow-up question on that is, as you mentioned, hold for a month or two. As our budget isn't predictive, it is based on the previous year, does that mean if it continues to overperform that you're looking at investing an additional amount into this fiscal year to make up for it?
You will get 50% of the revenues from this year next year.
Okay, so then it would still be this fiscal year, we're still operating
Right.
on the nearly $19,000 less.
And if you're short, it shouldn't be 11,000 in terms of the trend line. If it's 2,000 or 3,000, you walked out of 2024 with $9,000 surplus. To add to your surplus, you got over 100 grand. It's just like, you're making a wise decision to ask for this, but from the city standpoint, it's a rabbit hole. I don't know whether we should go down, because we value that Welcome Center. We want to, the consistency is important, so just offer that for your consideration.
Yes, and I'm sure, as a financial advisor, you all know that per our auditor, we're actually below what we should have in reserves. We should have 6 months in reserves, and you'll remember from previous years, even during the pandemic, we did not come to the city council to ask for even an extra dollar. We just asked to hold our budget when we weren't allowed to promote, because of course it was stay in place laws. And then we went after PPP loans. We did all manner of things to be able to help secure our budget to continue to be able to promote for the city. So, there's never been a point when we've asked for extra money. And even at this point, we're not asking for extra money. We're asking for the ability to invest the way that our board thinks is more appropriate for the return on investment that we get for advertising. But ultimately, I think we're really happy to hear how much you value the Welcome Center, that you do see how much work we put into it, because we are, you know, the #1 rated thing to do in Madison. We continue to receive those 5-star ratings. So we do put a lot of work into our Welcome Center that I think we're seeing is very valued, even if it's not exactly what my board thinks is the right decision business-wise.
And Mayor, if I may,
Mhm.
and I totally get it, having run a nonprofit for many years, I do understand the rule of thumb, you know, you can sit back and rest on your laurels a little bit when you've got 6 months of reserve, operating capital. I totally get that. However, I have also run a pretty big, you know, multi-million-dollar nonprofit with 3 months reserve, with 2 months reserve, knowing, you know, that that's gonna turn around, that it's gonna, so even while we are, if we look at January, February, March, that, and I understand the revenue and that sort of thing, but I'm saying, you know, I'm impressed that you've got that 6 months. I'm saying you could I mean, I feel like with that, you could still weather through and not have the 6 months, knowing, I mean, the thing is, I don't think the city, the county, you know, is gonna let the doors close completely. I mean that, but I think sometimes if even in tighten the belt, you know, get over that 6-month reserve for a little, you know, and let's tap into some of that. That's what it's there for anyway. The reserve is for the downtimes, when you're trying to push through for the next big bulk of money come in, be it a fundraiser, be it any of that sort of thing. So, I mean, maybe you have to give up that concept of feeling comfortable with the 6-month reserve. And again, I don't know your entire setup. Just from my own experience with a nonprofit, you know, I would still sleep at night if I had, you know, I really would sleep well with 6 months, but even if I had 2-month reserves, like, okay, I know, especially if I knew what was coming forward. So you know, and I appreciate, again, just like John says, the rest of the council say, I mean, we are grateful for you. We think you're doing a great job. We love it there. We love it to have that Welcome Center. So that's just a perspective I have that may not particularly apply to the situation.
So Jennifer, would you be okay with maybe coming back to this council in February, March, maybe to let us know how you're doing, you know, if it has picked up, and that way the Welcome Center will be open, you know, to give you some leverage.
Oh, and I'm sorry, my chair wanted to talk.
I have to let my timing. I can put on my programmer voice if I need to. Hello, my name's Carol Sanchez. I'm the park manager at Hard Labor Creek State Park and the chair of the CVB board. To speak to the timing, the Welcome Center serves the visitors of Madison, and when we think about January and February, it's cold, it's dark, there's not a lot of foot traffic. I initially brought this to Jennifer, the reduction of hours, because we reduce hours in our trading posts to serve check-ins also. You know, in May, we're open super late because people are coming to camp and they want to putt-putt and everything else. And I initially said, well, why don't we close on Sundays? Most other things downtown are closed on Sundays. She was like, absolutely not. Sunday is our busiest day. So we have really considered when is the best time for a visitor to really interact with the Welcome Center. And we looked, we don't want to close for the holidays, so of course we want to get through the 1st of January. Valentine's Day is on a Friday this year, so we're not closed over any holiday where people would be out milling around, what can we do? Trying to ask those questions. It's cold, dark Mondays and Tuesdays that we're really looking at to fill this gap and try to save as much of our money to not have to further cut items like PR. We've already had to reduce the printing cost of the brochure to try to maintain consistency, but balance, you know, we can't spend $20,000 again on a brochure this year. So how are we going to reduce? We've already held personnel positions to support Jennifer and the work she does. So when we speak about the CVB, the real work of the CVB is 1, sometimes and a half people in 2 part-time positions. And we've already held hiring for 2 months, 8 weeks to get that other skilled person in. So this is just an option, and I know revenues are up, that's great news, and next year maybe we won't have to look at closing or reducing hours, But just this year, it was something that we could try to keep investing and keep the lights on, those things that people are really using as visitors. Everybody loves a bathroom, but we're tasked with serving the visitor. And so that's really where we were looking to grow our dollars, is what are visitors needing? How are they interacting with the CVB? They're finding more information digitally to find these great businesses to visit when they come down, and less so into the Welcome Center physically.
So I know you're here to ask for, center to be closed, first 3 or 4 months in the first of the year. So instead
No,
of,
not totally closed. We'll still be open Thursday through Sunday.
I know, but,
Yeah.
just to poll the council members, so we won't have to keep going over this over and over again. Just a nod, would you like to see the Welcome Center open?
Mr. Mayor, before you
Sure.
ask that question, before I give you my nod,
Sure.
is there any way, and I don't know the workings of how y'all do it, maybe you say, no, it's only one person and we can't do any less, but is there any way to keep it open and still reduce your cost with less people? I mean,
That was exactly a suggestion I made to Jennifer, to perhaps use one of your internet outreach people to also cover these 6 people that walk in on a winter Monday. I realize it would, I think Jennifer had some concerns about that harming the production of the person that was in the back of the house, but that was certainly an alternative that made sense to me. I will say, to Charles' point, it's on a strictly business perspective, you're exactly right. I mean, it's not a smart way to spend your money for the 6 people that come in on a Monday in January. However, as you astutely noted, there are other factors involved, and that's the access to our visitors to the restrooms. It's also the fact that even though it's only maybe 6 people on a winter Monday, we want those people to come into Madison and feel welcome. So there's other factors involved in that, but I kind of like Rick's direction there. I'm not, even though Jennifer had concerns how well it would work, I think there's merit in looking at that. Maybe having one person cover the front desk and on those Monday and Tuesday in January, February, and still do more productive work in the back of the house. So, is that what you had in mind, Rick? Yeah.
I suppose our concern with that was, say if it was Jennifer, she is on several different boards and regional committees that pull her out of the office. And so she can't sit in the back permanently and be counted on because she's doing her work as the director. And as one of the benefits, our personnel is generally underpaid per market standards. And so we really have to push the work-life balance that we're able to offer. And so those other positions are primarily remote, only one day in the office kind of positions. So they're not all, it's not like there's 3 people working in back offices and we're only answering the counter with one of the greeters. They're just really bare bones there. So that was our thought, which is why we're asking.
And my thought would be, I know Jennifer managed the Welcome Center, and I think maybe with her managing the Welcome Center, this can be something that the council can't work this out, but you guys can work this out to make sure that's someone there those days that you want to be closed.
And if I may, even though, and I get it, I get being busy and being on different boards and all that, I get that, but that's also predictable. So in terms of planning, there would be a way, I mean, I would imagine, if you gotta, there's creative ways, there was, to say, okay, I can cover this much and then I need this or whatever, so I think, again, like the mayor says, I think there's, you all, there's other ways of solving this,
Right.
I think, and keeping it open. I think
so,
we,
yeah.
I mean, I personally, and I get it, and my heart goes out, I get it. I get running the nonprofit, trying to make every dollar count, but sometimes it might be 3 months of the dollar not really counting, but we get through it and then we move on.
So if we just get an offer from the council, so the Welcome Center be open the first 3 or 4 months of the year round.
Should it be open?
Should it be open, just a nod. I think everybody's in agreement. So we would just, I would just ask them, just come back to it maybe March if it's not working out for you. If your lost revenues come back, you know, but I'm sure you'll get it all worked out.
Do you have volunteers? Do you have anybody that can you use volunteers? I mean, the cultural center does, the cultural center, well, or has, you know.
But not for their front desk position, though.
No, that's a paid position, yeah.
So, I mean, the Welcome Center has looked at volunteers previously. They've tried it before, but it was impossible to keep the doors open the hours that was expected, because when you have a volunteer, there's not as much stake in the game that they're actually going to show up. So it's been a paid position for as long as I've been there, and from my understanding, as long as the previous director was there as well, just because it is important to keep it open, because that is part of the contract. So we would not, you know, risk that we would have a volunteer call in last minute and not show up.
So your remote positions, the ones that are home, they can't come in?
So, and just to clarify, so I'm the only full-time employee for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Besides me, there's one part-time marketing person, and that, as part of their work, like, you know, one of the few benefits we're able to offer is we have it as a hybrid role, because that really opened up a lot more skilled talent when we have that job. So it is hybrid, so they come in office 1 day a week, and then the rest, and it's just 30 hours a week, is remote. So it would be, you know, up to 1 day a week that they could come in office.
So it looks like it has been nod from the council that the Welcome Center remains open, you know, for a year.
Yeah, well, we understand.
Okay.
Thank you for considering
Sure.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Okay, John?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
We were going to have a presentation, I guess, is that not on the agenda? That's put on for another meeting? On the conference center and the
I think Ed was gonna talk about that, he's not here, I don't know what was on his mind, so we could
Yeah.
relay this to our next work session, if the council's okay with that. Yeah. Okay. Monica, were you gonna speak to it, I guess?
I was just going to say that I heard from both Ben Wigby and Councilmember Latham, and my understanding is they were going to follow the conversation that I had had with Manager Clem, and that was they felt it wasn't ripe until the DDA had deliberated. They've heard an idea, but they haven't talked about it yet.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
Ben suggested to Ed that that be held so the DDA could make a recommendation. And if you'll notice, both Ben and Julie Spire were here because everything on the list is DDA today, or downtown today. And so they were here, and my understanding is they will probably having a called meeting this week or next week. And when it's ripe, it'll come to the council on a work session.
Sounds great.
They don't have a recommendation yet.
Yeah.
They've just heard an idea. So I think Ed was agreeable to that.
So we'll just wait, Monica, until we hear back from you guys, okay?
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, on the heels of that, and again, we are going to set this aside, and that's fine. But what that brought up for me, and we may not be able to discuss it today, is the role of a liaison. All right, I don't know that we have any defined, formalized outline of what the role of a liaison is. And I will say that the standard city council role, a liaison role, if you'll look up, online and GMA and that sort of thing, refers to the liaison as supporting the work of the council, not an advocate for whatever commission they are on. So I'm a little concerned about the lines being blurred here by Mr. Latham proposing this, having his name even listed as the signatory on the contract, and coming up with all this. I'm just thinking, and I get it, and maybe when, and I'm not, sorry, not pointing to you, I'm just working out this, I'm a right thinker. So, I'm thinking, we need to consider this, and whether, in fact, I have some copies of kind of liaison roles, if the council would just like to, I'm not talking about discussing it today, but I'd be happy to share kind of what the outline generally is for what a liaison. I think we need to define that, because I think we've got some blurred lines here, and I think at some point we're we may be borderline on trouble, you know, by sort of an ethical kind of thing when we have a city council member working with developers, what's the word, organize, I've lost my word for that. But at any rate, even contracting, even sort of soliciting proposals for a feasibility study. I don't know what hat that is. But anyway, I would very much like it. I will share this with you, but I really would like, maybe at the next work session even, we could come up with what the role of a liaison should be so that we're all really clear what the boundaries are for a city council.
Right.
Thank you.
So Monica, I guess in the past, this council member that served as the liaison from council with DDA, what was that responsibility? What was that role? I mean,
So we kind of invented the liaison thing to help support some of our boards that were being beleaguered by the public, particularly HPC. And that's where the idea came from. And so that at least a council member could sit in the room, not participate, and hear what was going on. Now, sometimes we've had to draw that line for our council members and remind them that they're there as observers and not participators. We had a gentleman who used to like to go to planning commission meetings and offer comments, and we had to say, you're gonna cross that line. So it is important to know where this line is, so that you can retain your role as a decision maker that is
Yes.
unbiased, right?
Yes.
So that's important. So I appreciate Betsy bringing that up. But I will also say that the DDA is an authority, not a commission. I always have to remind y'all. And just to say that that role can be different. I'm not saying it should be different, but it can be different. We, in the past, have had council members or mayors who've actually had a voting seat on the board. The state law is different for the authority. The members are appointed to have a bias. And so they can actually, one member of your August body can actually serve as a voting member. Fred actually had a voting seat, Barry Lurie had a voting seat, and Bobby Crawford had a voting seat. And so at some point, we were looking for more diversity on the authority in terms of opinion, and the council member that had a prior voting seat took a role as a liaison like the rest of the boards, so that we could have one more member of the downtown community serve. So the DDA is a little different. I'm not saying they're special snowflake. I'm just saying that just remember that you can actually have someone who actually holds a seat and votes, and Fred did that in the past. So it's a little muddier with them than it is with the other boards. And I'm not saying, I am offering no comment on
Yes.
Mr.
Right,
Latham's role in this recent thing with the other. Those are divorced topics.
That's right. And I know you were going to say something, but real quick, I just want to say that, and thank you, Monica, for that clarification. We do know that DDA is a different animal. We do know that a city council person can sit on that board. Ed did sit on that board. He is not on that board now, so none of that applies to him. So he does not have a vote. He does not have, and I'm not sure, I get you, I'm not sure how different, and that's what we should really look at too, is with regard to DDA as well as the rest of the commissions, what that liaison animal looks like for the DDA, and why would that be any different than anything else? I mean, I'm not quite seeing how that would be different yet.
I'm not saying that it should be. I'm saying state law allows it to be.
State law allows them, well, as a member on the DDA, I understand that. State law does not make any provisions for a liaison and what their role is. So we could actually dictate that.
Yes, you could.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I was just gonna add that the fact that in the past we've had voting members on the board doesn't really, as Betsy pointed out, doesn't apply here. Ed is not a voting member. He is not a member of the DDA, but yet when I saw his name on that prospectus, it gave me concerns. What role is, I mean, it had problems written all over it in my mind. It's unfortunate he's not here today. If he wanted to pull his subject, he could have attended anyway and just not talked about it. I hate to talk about it when he's not here, but it was on the agenda, and we had people from DDA here. It's unfortunate. And it kind of relates to my next subject when we get to it too. But we'll just have to muddle on without the assistance of the DDA or Ed on my thing, but I'm concerned. I think the role, what I see is a whole lot of expansion of the authority of the liaison to be in effect a leader of the DDA. It seems very inappropriate to me, but.
Okay.
I've got
John?
3 short
Sure.
items. The first one is I want to remind the council that our annual employee recognition luncheon is December 11th at noon, right in this room, and we always appreciate and welcome any and all council members to attend. I also wanted to bring to your attention that we have formally reached out to Mr. Corbett Reynolds from the Georgia Department of Transportation. In a letter written by Aaron Wadley, it says the city of Madison is experiencing unprecedented peak period and off-peak congestion at the above referenced signalized intersections. Main Street has over 15,000 annual average daily traffic and has seen a 33% increase in truck percentage over the last 2 years. So our request is that the state perform a formal study on synchronization of these 2 traffic signals, on improved timing through both signals from southbound to southbound on Main Street, and in addition of protected left signal phase northbound East Washington to southbound Main Street. We have heard back from them that they intend to move forward. And so hopefully the citizens that have contacted us with concerns about those lights will see that we're moving forward to try to get some resolution. I also want to bring up the issue, you may recall in the T-Splosh, this latest iteration of T-Splosh, we had funding for a street sweeper, and Sean Wood and Karen Stapp want to give a brief presentation to give you an update on that. Karen will remind us what the problem was. We had inconsistent service in the past whose price kept going up, and consistent complaints from citizens that it was spotty service, that it wasn't done well, and that we weren't getting our money's worth. So Sean and Karen, do you want to summarize this issue for us?
Yeah, I'll just start out, Mayor and Council, thank you. Start out by saying that the need for a sweeping program is great here in Madison, especially this time of year with all the leaves we have falling, to keep our curbs and gutters clean and free of debris, so that stormwater can travel to the conveyance system properly. I do have the draft plan for stormwater management and street sweeping route. The plan is now to, and I'll be brief on this because I know it's been a long meeting, but the plan is to sweep in one district, sweep in all 5 districts every week. One district one day, District 2 the next. Maybe not in that order, but that way every district is getting the same amount of sweeping time. We did receive quotes from a Sourcewell vendor on a street sweeper that has a 3rd broom that's able to get up on top of the curb and clean the curbs off and everything. The quote was about $298,000, and it is, like I say, it is a Sourcewell vendor, and we would like to move forward with this, with the purchase.
Meaning it's on the state bid list, so we're able to buy off of the
Is that
state
new?
is.
That's brand new, and
Yeah.
that includes, it comes with a set of brooms. These brooms, you know, they last a pretty good while, but they do wear out. That comes with 2 sets of standard brooms and 2 additional 3rd brooms for the curb top.
Sean will tell you we agonized because we were able to procure a used sweeper, and there was a modest savings, but you don't know what you're buying, and you can't tell until after the fact whether that was a good business decision. And with the money, the amount of money we're spending, both Sean and I fully agree that at the end of the day, we're better off buying new.
And I'll touch real quick, because history, we have always contracted this service out. And it was typically done about 4 times a year, every quarter. And I would say last 5 years, we have upped it to 5 times a year, twice in the heavy months of the fall. And then with speaking with the contractor, he was pushing to do even more. And the price kept increasing. And so we were getting to the point, just for a handful of times a year, that the cost was getting over $50,000. And at that point, and you might have noticed, we haven't actually done a lot of sweeping this year because of that. And so when Sean came on, the discussion came up, and thought that it was best that we go ahead and take this approach instead of continuing to contract the service out. And the contractor was also limited to the number of miles that they swept, to where there were a lot of areas in the city that weren't even being swept because we couldn't pay any more than what we were, and they weren't gonna do it anyway. At this point, we could do it all over.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. The plan that I have, to present to Mr. Clem is it will include sweeping every street twice a year. That'll be a full-time employee on that sweeper every day. Now, there will be times when it's down for service, routine maintenance. There could be hydraulic hoses that come up and things like that, but the plan is to keep this a full-time operation. We'd like to also utilize it as a marketing tool for our natural gas utility, and have it wrapped with public awareness messaging as well.
Would that require a new full-time employee for the street department?
No, sir, we already have one in place.
Oh, that's great.
I've also shared with Mr. Clem a video of this sweeper in action. It's a small unit. It's able to maneuver around downtown traffic, maneuver around parked cars, get into tight spots, and it holds a lot of debris. So it's able to stay out pretty much half the day before you have to dump the debris.
So
Yeah,
you
I'm
should
not
be
saying-
hearing from your, this is a good
It
news
is.
story.
It really
You
is.
should be hearing, and we're absolutely insistent, Sean's very clear that the service is gonna be citywide,
Good.
equals
It
in all
sounds to
of the
me,
districts.
Mayor, like you get a good ROI, a quick ROI on the investment, plus you're
Absolutely.
beautifying the city, plus
Yes.
I liked what you said about if it'll actually help stormwater do what it's supposed to do if it's not diverted or clogged or whatever, and hopefully help on some other issues.
And this is a perfect example of T-SPLOS funds being
Yes.
used on equipment to
Yes.
really take care
So
of
this
the
is good.
streets.
Yes.
And it would make our stormwater system that much more efficient?
Because it gets the debris out of the drains.
That's
This
good.
is thrilling.
This
I
is
can't tell you how many
really
hours
good.
I'm
Thank you,
raking
Sean.
leaves out of the
Welcome to
street
Madison.
in front
With
of
Mayor
my
and council's
house.
approval, we would also like to advertise that this is your T-SPLOS funds at work on
Yes.
the.
Good.
That'd be
ramp
nice.
of the
Good.
street.
That'd be good.
Be great. Well, you gonna say something?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, tell me, you said you wanted to tie it in with our gas service, or you wanted to piggyback on, by getting the word out? Tell me,
It's just including a small message, public awareness message for natural gas utility, which is required by the PSC, that we just bring awareness to natural gas, and it'll be just a small part of the route, or the messaging on the vehicle route.
I think that's amazing.
it's on the vehicle itself?
It would be on
Yeah.
the vehicle itself, yeah.
I see. All right.
You think-
You don't know what rap
I'm sorry, I should have been more clear.
You thought it was hauling a billboard?
I know, right?
That's basically what it is, a moving billboard.
it's just
So
gonna be
basically, the
wrapping.
vehicle will say City of Madison and gas, or something like that.
Yeah, and it'll have, some messaging on it related to stormwater and your T-SPLOS funds that
And could it have the pictures of the city council on it too, like waving, like buses?
Oh.
We will be cleaning up after the parade. I guarantee you.
Does that mean we can have horses downtown now?
I don't know. So if we can get a nod from the council to put this on our consent agenda, Paul, go ahead.
Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you,
The
Sean.
last item, Mayor, is I wanted to give, Monica and I were gonna give you a brief update on a parking issue downtown, but
Okay.
I think because of the length of this meeting, that we'll defer that to the next council meeting.
So you don't want to go, so you want to,
Well, we're not really ready yet.
you're not ready yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us down to Eric George.
Yeah, I did have one question, if I could, Mayor, for John, on your first point. The letter to GDOT,
Yes.
who is that letter coming from specifically?
It came from Aaron Wadley, city engineer.
Would it not have more heft? Would it be coming from Mayor Perriman? Or what I'm wondering is, in January, we have Cities United. Talking to GDOT is kind of like talking to the railroad sometimes, you know. They don't really listen real well.
I guess if
Do
we
you see
thought
a
we needed
benefit?
that extra influence, we would have asked, but Aaron already knew what the answer was gonna be before he wrote the letter.
Well, that's something maybe those of us that go to Cities United, if you're around for the Capitol visit, is to bring up with Strickland and Fleming.
Yes.
Because they would have more influence with GDOT than I do, that's for
Right.
sure.
Right. If that's okay with John, we'd certainly do that.
But I'm thrilled to hear you're moving on that, because those two intersections are horribly inefficient at moving traffic. Okay, is that to me then, Mayor?
Yes, it's to you.
Okay, what I'm asking for today is kind of a, we're closing the barn door after the cows have gotten out here. We've already taken the vote. I really wish, and I think planning department to some degree agrees, our vote last week to expand the DDA area map really could have used a work session, in my opinion, like what I'm kind of proposing now. I would really like to have had a little more fulsome discussion on that map change before we took the vote. If I'm not mistaken, when we got the packet, we got these two maps that I've copied for you with no other written explanation about why it's a good idea, why we're doing it. It's just kind of two maps. I had to actually look at them to figure out which is the new one, which is the old one. But anyway, I really wish we had a chance to use this opportunity with the work session to discuss it. So I realize we've already taken the vote. The map has been changed. I will say, as I've let some of the main concern, I hate to be so proprietary about it, but the main change that concerns my citizens and neighbors is the inclusion of Candler Lane into the DDA map. And when I talked to my neighbors as to that vote was taken and we are now under the DDA overlay map, to a person, they had the same question that I've kind of had, and what does that mean for us? Pretty common sense. Okay, we're now in the DDA. We weren't 2 weeks ago. Now we are. What does that mean for us? And I did not have an answer for them. And I really wish with a work session I could have had an answer for them. But I don't have one, so I'm trying to find one. And that's maybe what I'm hopeful to get today. As I talked to Monica a number of occasions about it, basically the answer was it doesn't mean anything for my neighbors on Candler Lane. There'll be no effect. I'm a little skeptical of that. Maybe now, maybe not 20 years from now. But it seems like the reason for doing it was to jive up this map with the downtown commercial tax map. Okay, so where is the public benefit for having the two maps coincide? What is the overriding public interest in having the two maps overlap identically? I mean, I don't see it.
So Monica, you want to, you probably already had this conversation, I'm sure.
I might as well just sit in the hot seat all day today. It's cold outside. It is cold outside.
You should be
It's a hell of a
grateful.
seat warmer, my friend.
Warming you up.
Okay, so my answer remains the same as our logic from our meeting. Again, I will reiterate that it would not have upset me to have had a work session before this. I am kind of coming on the backside a little bit. If Sarah had known, I think she could have been here. This was really initiated by Main Street, and I was responsive to that. To respond to Councilmember Joyce's concerns, remember that, yes, it is called the DDA area, but the name of it is the Downtown Development Area, and it's not the Downtown Development Authority specifically, but this is the area of operation. It shrinks and grows over time. It's been changed a couple of times. It was changed, well, it's actually only been changed once. It was changed once to put Walker Rose in. And so what I would say in terms of, there's some Main Street stuff and there's some planning stuff. So Sarah wanted to have both the Main Street map and the downtown development area match. And the reason that is so she knows the area that she's serving, and the board that currently serves as the oversight board has the same jurisdictional boundary to follow. And so for her, it was a cleanup. For us, it was something that Ann and I had always talked about cleaning up, so that when Main Street's board and their oversight board is the Downtown Development Authority, the DDA is looking at the same map all the time. It's not different for where Main Street's providing services and different, and the tax district, and different for where the Downtown Development Authority can operate. And I understand that Councilmember Joyce has some concerns about operation, which is why I asked Ben and Julie Spire to start attending and listening to downtown conversations, because I do think that if there are concerns, it means that there is a relationship breakdown that they need to be paying attention to. So I think that you will see them be much more proactive, to be here to answer questions and to hear things, particularly when their representative has concerns, because most of downtown is in Eric's district. So I really appreciate that he's paying attention to that. So they'll be here to answer questions as well, but my answers differ a little bit when I'm wearing my planning hat. So from a planning perspective, that's what you heard mostly at the council meeting, because I let Sarah speak to the need to have matching boundaries. I spoke mostly to the planning aspects of it. We also tried to get it really close to the P2 district that you will see that is the bubble on the zoning map around the C1 district, which is really close to the A&E boundary, all right? So wherever we can make sense and kind of clean things up, we do try to do that. Just like if I could wave my magic wand, everything inside the bypass would be inside the city limits, because that is a stupid boundary. We do look for consistency and conformity. So the planning answer at the meeting was that it makes sense for all the densities that are above R4, right, to be inside a single boundary. That made sense to me as a planner. So Canner Lane is denser than 4 units per acre. Walker Rose is denser than 4 units per acre. The Anchorage is denser than 4 units per acre. All of those are PUDs or T&Ds that are now PUDs under our ordinance that are all higher than 4 units per acre. Are they going to get any extra services? No. Are they going to pay any extra taxes? Nope. Can the DDA afford to buy anything? Is there anything that needs renovating in those areas? Nope. So therefore, my answer was, yeah, there's no effect. But what it does do is it gives your operational administration staff and the board's administrative board the same jurisdictional boundaries. And if for a planner, I'm looking at all the congregate and all the above R4 is all inside of a certain area. Does that make it more legally defensible that some future council 15, 20 years from now won't let that spill out of that line? No, because y'all don't control a future council. But does it help reinforce that that's where the single family that's above R4 is and where the congregate is? Yes, it's another tool for guiding that decision making. So I spoke from a planning perspective. Sarah spoke from a downtown perspective, but I wasn't being sassy, Eric. I promise when I said it means nothing to a residential.
I didn't think you were being sassy.
Or bullheaded, whichever it was. I really just don't want that perception. I want to be clear that when I'm looking at it, it is a neutral answer, not a nothing answer, because again, residential doesn't pay taxes into the special tax district, which is Sarah's service area. It doesn't really impact zoning, but it is yet another tool that guides and conforms with the comp plan. And there's nothing that needs revitalizing in those areas. And so maybe 20 years from now, there's some shabbiness and something needs to be addressed, but right now, price point would predicate that there's nothing that can be done in those areas that would be helpful by DDA at all. So I'm happy to answer any questions. My answer really hadn't changed from the council meeting.
I didn't expect it to change, really.
Well, I
let
do
me
try
ask
to
you
be
this.
consistent.
Okay, well, for one thing, there's a bunch of Canaan Crossing, Carmichael,
Yes.
dense places. None of those are in the Downtown Development Authority. So what is, I mean, you want to clump them all within that area. Those are two big dense developments that aren't even close to the.
No, sir, only
Yeah.
the ones that are in the downtown development area, not in the urban renewal area.
Yeah.
So the DDA area does include congregate. That would be the Parks, Lofts, and Suites. It would be the Piggly Wiggly, and it would be everything over the James Madison and in that area. And it would be the special PUD that we did for the church, and it would also include Silver Lakes.
But is not the purpose of the Downtown Development Authority to encourage economic growth downtown?
Its job is to encourage.
Not the Dura, not the urban
Yes, sir.
renewal, but the
Its
DDA.
job is to encourage revitalization, and economic restructuring is the new term for Main Street.
So how does that apply to Candler Lane, where, as I said at our meeting, where the oldest house is 26 years old?
No differently than it applies to Walker Rose. The encouragement of small housing within close proximity to the downtown that's walking. The same reason the city built Walker Rose is the same reason they allowed Everett to do Candler Lane.
Yeah, but Walker Rose was done before. I'm looking at the difference between what was the existing map to what we approved last week.
The permitting
Walker Rose
was very similar. Yes, sir.
So if, before we made the change, and I know you hate the hypotheticals, but before we changed the map, and DDA did not include Candler Lane,
Right.
would DDA have been allowed to purchase a house on Candler Lane?
Technically, yes.
Hmm.
Is there any reason why they would do that? Absolutely not.
But they would be allowed to
The
purchase.
DDA has never, that I know of, made a purchase of market rate property. That wasn't either dilapidated or in need of renovation or vacant. I think they would have a really hard time convincing you that they had executed a public purpose. But could some future DDA do that? Yeah, just like some future city council could rezone R4 or stuff outside the boundary to more than R4. I
Let me
can't
ask
predict.
this of the five of us sitting here at this table. I believe I'm the only one who now lives in the Downtown Development Authority area map. None of you do. Ed doesn't, maybe. So I'm the only one. So I would ask you to kind of put yourselves in my position. And am I being overly sensitive here, or would you all be totally comfortable if for whatever reason the map was changed to include your house, Rick, or yours, Mayor? I mean, would you be totally comfortable and say, well, I mean, it has no bearing, it's not gonna make any changes, you can tell your next door neighbor, no, don't worry about it, it's just kind of a housekeeping cleanup, it means nothing for you as a homeowner or as my neighbor. Is that really the case? It makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I still, when my neighbors ask me that question again, what does it mean for us? I would like to be able to tell them it means nothing, but then it kind of begs the question, then why are we doing it? If it means nothing for us, why are we making that change? Just so this map can match up with this other map?
I think when I say nothing, Councilmember Joyce, what I meant is there is neither harm nor help they're not getting any extra benefits and they're not getting any extra harm. That's what I mean by it being neutral or saying nothing. And I will say that both Carrie and Fred live inside the urban renewal area.
Yeah, they do.
And they have a similar overlay that sits on top of them. And so maybe,
They do live in the Eura. you're
maybe
right.
they also feel threatened.
But they don't live in the Downtown Development Authority, Matt.
No, they don't.
I realize they're related, but they're not the same.
So,
No, actually, the URA is a much more powerful tool.
so if it's not going to affect your neighborhood at all, I guess your constituents are concerned that it's going to affect them?
Well, that's their question. I mean, how could it affect us? I mean, I'll give you a kind of a hypothetical, Mayor. Say 10 years from now, a tornado comes through and wipes out 2 houses on Candler Lane. They're now vacant lots. Is DDA, because we are now in their area, and I realize this is hypothetical, are they now more able to purchase those 2 empty lots and put up a multifamily housing unit? Or are they more able to create an access to county land behind the courthouse, which abuts the back of Candler Lane's property? Is it more likely that those kinds of things could happen that might have an adverse effect on the rest of the neighborhood?
So I guess it goes back to Monica.
Well, I think that goes to an underlying misunderstanding of the DDA's role. First, I would ask you, what scary thing have they done that has suddenly made them persona non grata, especially to their own council member who represents them? I mean, that's one of the concerns I have. Maybe they need to do a better job of communicating, or maybe as staff, I've done a poor job of communicating what their role is. Their role is only to step in when the private market won't take care of something. They don't have a role in rebuilding single-family housing in a high-end neighborhood. That is not their role. Their job is to facilitate where the private market won't fill in. So let's say that in 10 years, I'll run down that hypothetical. All right, so let's say in 10 years, a tornado comes through, wipes out 2 or 3 houses in Candler Lane. The lots are still going to be valued at $75,000, $100,000, $125,000. That still means to put a house on that lot is going to run it into the $700,000 and $800,000 range, right? There's no role for the Downtown Development Authority in that. And the private market is going to snap to get to those lots. We'd have a list of 20 people to buy them. That's not the role of the DDA to step in and do and provide what the private market will. And so they're very clear on that. And maybe maybe as staff, I'm not re-emphasizing enough. I mean, they're only looking at things that the private market will not do, or cannot do, or difficult situations that require a steward that's willing to be unpaid and slog into the mud and sort it out. I mean, the middle school is a perfect example of the slog. The perfect example of somebody doing nothing is the McDowell building and trying to market it for purpose. And even this feasibility study that I know that's gotten a lot of you concerned, they're talking about what the next downtown anchor is after heritage tourism wanes. You know, when the Welcome Center's numbers, if they continue to drop as the boomers die off and people aren't coming for heritage tourism, what's the next thing that's going to anchor downtown? And so I think all of those things are things DDA should be doing. There is no role in them developing, going in and buying market rate lots and building market rate housing. There's no scenario under which I can imagine the city council will support that even a little bit.
Okay, there's something important. You kind of inferred that I have a antipathy or something with the DDA. Let me say a couple of things.
Okay.
The DDA owns 49 properties in the city of Madison.
Yes, sir.
49 separate parcels. What they do with those 49 parcels is really important to this city and how it grows and how it progresses.
Yes, sir.
We as council members have a responsibility to pay attention to that.
Yes, sir.
We also, I might add, I signed, a couple of weeks ago, I signed a quarterly check to the DDA of $31,000. Times 4 is 125 grand a year. I think we also gave the DDA another 30 grand this year to write off a note. That's $150,000 of taxpayer money
Yes, sir.
that we've given to the DDA for what they provide for us as a city.
Yes, sir.
Another reason why I should be paying attention.
Yes, sir.
So not only, and on top of that, we also appoint every single member of the DDA. We as a council vote on those appointments. Another reason why we should be paying attention. And I will say, speaking personally, I have voted for every single appointment or reappointment of every single one of those DDA members. I have voted for every single one of the budgets for the past 6 or 7 years that includes that 150 grand or whatever per year to support their efforts. I have publicly expressed my admiration for the work they're trying to do in the downtown development area. I object to any implication that I should not be involved in paying attention. I say it is my responsibility to pay attention.
If
to
I
the
implied in
DDA.
any way whatsoever that you shouldn't be paying
Well,
attention?
I think you did.
No, sir,
You-
that was
you-
not my
You
intent.
applied an animus to the DDA. I am paying attention to what they do because
Okay.
that I see as my responsibility and my obligation, both to my district and to the city as a whole. And that's why I will continue to pay attention to what they do.
I think you should.
And you know, this could go on and on, you know, and we've been here almost a half a day. And I appreciate your concern, Eric, I really do. And Monica, I appreciate your
Well, if
answering.
in any way I implied that y'all are not welcome for oversight and commentary, I work for you.
Right.
You loaned me to the DDA. And so I want to be very clear, I'm not worried about providing information to you or the oversight, and no way do I think you should not be paying attention to the work that they do. I was expressing concerns about some of the sentiments I've been hearing, and maybe we're not doing a good job on their behalf communicating things to y'all, that there's no ill intent on their side when they're performing their duties.
Thanks, Monica.
Yes, sir.
Eric, that answered your question? Are you
Yeah, it does.
satisfied?
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure, thank you.
Monica.
Okay, there's nothing else. This is our work session this morning. Thank you so much.